year, the British Touring Car Championship. Dunlop came in at the beginning of the year, and the racing has been tremendous. That's what we have first, followed up, of course, by Formula 3000 from Le Mans. But first, Oulton Park, round 10 of the Dunlop RAC British Touring Car Championship at Oulton Park. A race with a difference over 30 laps and a change of driver to contend with. Chris Hodgetts has entered 2 Toyotas, sharing the driving between himself and Tiff NEEDELL. At the changeover, they just swapped cars. Here's the change at Oulton Park. Instead of turning right, the cars carry on along the long straight here toward the very, very quick left-hander. Then there's heavy braking after this into the hairpin. This makes Oulton a much more difficult circuit. But that's not the only change. Acceleration out of the hairpin, and the cars are faced with a new corner. After the right-hander here, there is a left-right-left chicane, known as Fulston's. Then it's over hilltop and diving down towards Knickerbrook. Brake, change down, and the line through Knickerbrook now has to be a very quick one indeed. It's now a very fast corner. Clay Hill and under the Spectators Bridge, or now towards Druids, a very difficult right-hander that's caught out many a driver. A 2-part look at Druids, and then on up towards Lodge Corner. That's the road bridge into the paddock and the centre of the circuit, and here's Lodge. Coming out of Lodge, there's adverse camber. In wet conditions, this makes it even more tricky. And then this wicked left-hand dart before they go past the pit area under the Eagle Star Bridge. Richard Hay talks to NEEDELL and Hodgetts about their chances.
First of all, Chris, you're now the British Touring Car Champion for 87, 2 years running. Things go well at Donington last week?
Yes, it was a relatively easy weekend for us. The car was very good and went very well. Obviously, pleasing to get the second championship once again at Donington. It was good.
Now, turning our attentions to this weekend, there's yourself and this NEEDELL fella here. And you've got 2 cars and 2 drivers between you, is this right?
That's quite correct, yes. 2 cars, 2 drivers, both on pole, both on second. Yeah.
How are you going to work the driver changeover?
We're going to run like hell down the pit lane between ourselves. A bit like a cricket match.
We'll probably meet in the middle and fall down.
It's a light-hearted weekend because we've had a lot of pressure all throughout the year. It's going to be good fun for the mechanics. They've had a hard year with the WTC as well. And we are obviously treating it very seriously because we always treat our motorsport that way. But it'll be good fun and, it'll be interesting.
Andy, fresh from the Eastern Bloc and the World Touring Car race at Brunel, you come to Oulton Park for the first of the long-distance races, in fact the only long-distance race in the British Championship. You set the time in practice. Can you maintain the pole position first on the grid for the race, do you think?
Well, it's Wyn Percy's a bit of a threat actually in the Graham Good car. Our car's going very well, but it's going to be a question of who's got the strongest driver pairing really for the race. I mean, it's there's 1 or 2 quick drivers and there's 1 or 2 other drivers along with them that that are probably going to be a little bit slower. So at the end, I think it's going to be the best combination that wins. Our car's going very well. I mean, both drivers going well too. If we can do a good pit stop, then we're in with a good chance. We're a bit concerned at the moment. We've got a misfire on left-handers, which is causing a bit of grief, but apart from that, it's all right.
Graham, first of all, the car is going better, obviously, now. Donington Park last weekend, you nearly won. This weekend, you've got Wyn Percy with you for the long-distance race at Oulton Park. Things going well here?
Yes, so far, things are going very well. We've practiced well. We're second quickest, so front row of the grid. No better place to start than that.
Now, Wyn, this is your second drive in a Sierra Cosworth this year, but last time you drove for the opposition. Is there a big difference between that car and this car, or are they very similar?
I wouldn't say there's a big difference. Obviously, this is the Evolution car now as well. But I mean, this is the first time I've seen Graham's cars in the past. The preparation is second to none. It really is a pleasure to drive for him. Very pleased.
Which one of the 2 have you set the time in the car?
Win set the time.
And so who starts this afternoon?
Win's going to start.
And is it 15 laps each?
Can we give away these secrets?
Well, that's a trade secret, but no, Win will be doing a fair stint to start off with.
I think we really got to see what the tyres do, to be honest. That's the governing factor, really.
That's right. So we'll see how things go.
Is that a big worry for you, the tyres?
I don't think it's a big worry. I think we know where we're at with the tyres, but obviously it is something that can come into play and alter the plans somewhat.
But you reckon, Mr. Percy, you can find your second win of the year in the British Touring Car Championship this afternoon?
Well, I'd very much like to, for my sake and Graham's. So I think we work together. We stand a good as chance as anybody.
The M3 going well at Oulton?
The Oulton theoretically is probably the best circuit for the M3, although that isn't reflected in today's practice times. But we were very short of time. Yesterday in practice, when we got lots of time, we were actually going quite a bit quicker than that. So we're looking upon this race as an endurance race, and outright quick times aren't necessarily going to be the way to win it.
Welshman Carl Jones has brought Demon Tweed's colours to Dennis Leach's Rover, while a similar car at Skid Scarborough has Lionel Abbott aboard, usually co-driver with Mike Smith. Jeff Allen, however, has chosen to drive with David Carvell, so the Rover grouping is very strong, and in particular the Team Istel car of David Leslie now joining Tim Harvey. They should have a very good chance in this race. The winning car from the first Oulton meeting was further down than expected.
First of all, Harvey, why are you only fourth quickest?
Well, we're just cruising around on race tyres and taking things easy and letting the battle for pole position wear everyone else's cars out.
You said we, of course, because this is the only long-distance round of the British Touring Car Championship, and with you you've got David Leslie. David, how do you enjoy driving the Rover?
I find it very exciting. It's getting used to it slowly. Not had a lot of time in the car, but thoroughly enjoying it, and a little bit more time in the car when the race starts. I'll be fine.
Who does start out of the two of you?
I shall start.
And pit stops will be around about when?
We'll actually stop around lap 20, and David will finish the race, hopefully in pole position.
You think that's on, David?
If he hands it to me in pole position, I'll do my best to keep it there, one way or the other.
Jeff, you've made your return to the British Touring Car Championship here at Oulton Park for the long-distance race, with a car that you know fairly well.
Yeah, it's a good old friend of mine, that car. I've been driving that one back from 84, 85, and we went down to Bathurst in Australia with the car. I've done Spa 24 hours with it, so she's a good old bus.
You put up a very respectable time in practice. Can it live with the Cosworths?
No, there's no way. You know, we're 120 horsepower down on the Cosworths, so there's no way we can live with them in sheer pace. But I think this race will be a bit of a tactical race. Some of the two Sierras, the second drivers are not that quick. They got tyre wear problems with them, and I think if we drive a sensible race, we're certainly finishing the top three, and if not, we might have a success story on our hands later on. I don't know. It's difficult to actually predict the result, but I know we're going to be well up there. We're going to drive to a certain pace. I know it's only 30 laps, but if we keep our tyres together, when the pit stops are all done and I'm going to do the second stint, I'm sure I can make up a lot of time on the other cars.
So this is the way they line up after practice. Rouse and Hall and Percy and Good in the Cosworths on the front row. Carvell and Allen and Harvey and Leslie with Rovers, then SYTNER's BMW and the Leach-Jones Rover, and Mike O'Brien and a very impressive Gary Brabham with the Holden Commodore, with Scarborough and Abbott alongside him. The pace cars start as usual, and the conditions far from ideal for a long-distance race. Andy Rouse is still concerned about the misfire that he had during practice, but he's made a decision to go on wet tyres. Win Percy, on the other hand, is going on slicks. And that's quite a gamble in these conditions. So, what does Win feel about it?
It's a fair time, isn't it?
I think it'll dry, I hope so. At the moment it's much too wet. I mean, it's great plumes of water. But we'll see. Hopefully within about 5 laps I'll benefit from it. But I'll fall way back down the field during that.
Well, Win seems to think that the idea might pay off. I wonder whether the Dragon could breathe fire on the track and dry it out a little bit. No doubt about it, as far as Graham Good's concerned, this is an important race, but everybody feels that the Rovers here could stand a very good chance, and David Carvell's car to take over Jeff Allen could be a man to watch. Equally, David Leslie came in late to the Tim Harvey team, and Harvey, we know, is more than capable of handling the opposition. The BMW M3 of Frank SYTNER. And Frank, on this twisty circuit, could be very much a force to be reckoned with. And nobody can discount Dennis Leach. Dennis the Menace looking decidedly uncomfortable at the moment, but he doesn't smile a lot. And perhaps he might have something to smile about after the race. Certainly beforehand, he doesn't want to know. Away they go behind the pace car. And you can see just how wet this track is. Don't forget those two front row cars on entirely different tyre setups. Win Percy taking the chance of starting on slick tyres. And that could really be something that he will regret later on in the race. Time alone will tell. The track, of course, with these big tyres on, will dry out very quickly, and as long as there's no more rain, that gamble can come off, shall we say, with a very, very good chance of success. But in the early laps, he's going to have a very skittish car to handle. ROUSE, we know, had that misfire. They've still been looking at that, and I believe that they've got it cured, but again, time alone will tell. So the Rovers, by far and away numerically the strongest force here. The Commodore could be in with a chance. The 635 BMW of Mike Newman is going to be there at the finish. John Dooley with the Alpha. And the little Volkswagens there, the Demon Tweaks car. This could certainly be well in for a class win. And of course, they're not going to have the disadvantage of power loss that the normal Group A cars have over the Volkswagen in a race of this type. So they could be quite competitive. Wet track, always the great level. That's Knickerbrook. The spectators huddling under the trees for cover, and who can blame them? And we go in car now with Hay Fisher Productions race cam. This is the Isdale Rover. And you can see what the conditions are like out there. It also sounds to me as if the Harvey car is starting with a gearbox that's a little bit noisy. I know that they were a little bit concerned about it as part of the start of the race, but it just wasn't time to change that box, and I suppose that in a 30-lap race it should last out. They are, of course, considering the Tourist Trophy that's coming up at Silverstone, so they're not going to want to change too much on the car before that. They'll want to start off with a complete rebuild for that race because it's a long race. The pace car light blinking comes up, and it looks as if we've got a race start. The pace car pulls off, and into the lead it's Andy Rouse, but Win Percy up alongside him. And we can see the Rover now right close up on the tail. And Win Percy looking for a way past Rouse. And Rouse on wet tyres has Win Percy right with him at the moment. Back in car to the Rover, we've got a view now of just how skittish that car in front is. And Win really having difficulty feeding the power down, but don't those Cosworths get away in a straight line. On go the brakes for the left-hander here, and this is where Win is going to have to be very, very careful, because the amount of adhesion that he's got on slicks is very small. Brakes dabbing on. There's Rouse taking a wider line into the hairpin than Percy. And Percy comes out. The Rover slides behind him, so it's Rouse in the lead, Percy in second place, Tim Harvey in third place. And that looks like the David Carvel Rover there in fourth. Then Frank SYTNER, then the very distinctive car of Dennis the Menace. There's the first of the Toyotas. And down the straight towards Knickerbrook, Win Percy is not going to give any ground at all to Andy Rouse. He's going to sit there and shadow him. Back in car to the Rover. And Percy having a look at the outside here and coming blasting past Rouse. And it's very, very wet there. And Win Percy seemingly was quite unmoved by the situation. Past Rouse has taken the lead into Druid's corner, and in spite of this streaming wet track, and Rouse has got a problem. Rouse is slowing right down, so that's the reason behind that. Andy Rouse has a problem, but Win Percy has long gone into the distance. And this is why Win Percy is considered to be one of the finest saloon car drivers in the world. Rover's skittering and skating behind him, and Frank SYTNER's BMW on the tail of them there, driving a very steady race at the moment. And Frank, of course, will be waiting to see what happens with the Fords and the Rovers up ahead. He'll make his bid later. Frank is a great man for playing politics, but Andy Rouse seems to have recovered from what appears to be a car that still has a problem. I think it's that misfire again. Here is Win Percy coming down the hill, 25 yards from Tim Harvey's Rover. Andy Rouse in third place. And Percy really taking his carriage in both hands, and you saw the car slide there as he came out of the Cascades. And here he is going round that left-hander, which he has to tippy-toe round, and the Rover gaining ground there and into the hairpin. Rover covering the ground between himself and the Ford under braking there, where of course he's got superior braking power. The Rover's always been good on brakes, but of course on slick tyres, there's nothing that Win Percy can do to hold him at bay. Into Fulston's, over the curb there. This will slightly unsettle the car, but not enough to cause a problem. And there's the BMW right up to the Rovers now. Dennis Leach, Commodore, and there's Mike Newman with the 635, and that's Tiff NEEDELL, Chris Hodges behind him, and Jerry, the Rainmaster Marshall. We go in car now with Tiff NEEDELL, and NEEDELL is certainly at the moment holding sway, and these two cars of course will try and stay close together if they can, because as long as they stay close together, when they come to the changeover, where one driver hops into the other one's car, nobody's going to be wanting left standing around in the pits waiting. Over that hump there at Clay Hill, on now towards Druids. You can see just how slippery it is, and Tiff NEEDELL there getting a bit of opposite lock-on. NEEDELL, of course, had his Formula One drives with Ensign. He's perhaps one of the forgotten drivers on the British scene, a far, far better driver than a lot of people give him credit for. Understeer, oversteer, not too much. Under the Eagle Star Bridge. And here is Win Percy, very much in charge of the Listerine car, and driving really beautifully. Slick tyres, don't forget, in these very, very slippery conditions, which don't seem to be drying up, but don't seem to be affecting him. Window open, out comes the tail, corrects it, and into this very, very quick left-hander, which you've got to brake on the end of, and that's really what makes this particular part of the circuit difficult. Now the hairpin, and accelerating away towards Fulston's. You can see the Rover just coming into sight there, so definitely quite a fair bit of distance put between the Listerine Sierra Cosworth in the hands of Win Percy and Tim Harvey in the Rover, who had yet to come in sight. This time you'll see that not quite such a heavy cloud on the curb that unsettled the car on that previous lap, as over Hilltop, down towards Knickerbrook, comes Win Percy, 43 years old, runs a garage in Weymouth, drove of course for TWR last year, nearly won the International Touring Car Championship, and in fact that's still, I think, to be finally sorted out, but I believe that they have decided that he didn't go to win by 1 point, and he's shortly to set off for Australia and New Zealand to do the World Touring Car Championship over there with Alan Grice. And there's Harvey, opposite lock on the Rover. David Leslie to take over that car, who's driven a lot in World Endurance Championship races and is a very, very quick driver. Again, one of the underrated stars. Percy heads slightly forward. Beautiful throttle work, and the car not getting out of line into the Cascades here, and this is where we've seen him correct the car as it comes out. A long oversteering power slide, just jigs out of line there, controls it nicely. And smooth car all the time. On go the brakes. The Cosworth modified to the latest 500 spec, which of course is going to make it even more competitive. And a beautiful line here into Fulston's. Touches the curb one side, touches it the outside. Tail comes out, but that was anticipated. And here's the Rover drifting a wee bit coming in. Tail taking charge of the dog there a little bit. David Carvell, his car nicely controlled. And the M3 falling back. Frank SYTNER falling into the clutches of the Holden. Then Jeff Allen. Mike Newman with the 635. Normally is a disadvantage because he hasn't got the power right up with that little brute. Harvey.